Kita lives alone after his mother died in a freak car accident, while his father periodically sends him his allowance. His childhood friend Akane often prepares him his meals. Already late for school, he leisurely walks with his friend Yamada, who shows off a ticket she won to a concert. In the afternoon, Kita turns down invitations from both of his friends and his next-door neighbor to hang out, lying that he has some other errands to run. He instead chooses to go off on his own, and he is shaken to see a woman who looks exactly like his mother. Elsewhere across the city, two other individuals look exactly like Yamada. When he comes to school the next day, his teacher is noticeably absent. He later waits by a train station, hoping to catch a glimpse of his mother's doppelganger. He eventually gives up and goes to his favorite ramen shop, where he meets a strange girl and her dog, Punupuni, whom he treats to a bowl of ramen. She begins rambling that doppelgangers do not exist, but doppelliners do. She elaborates that there is one root and two subs, and if they ever encounter each other, the subs are the ones killed off. She is suddenly assaulted by a man with a bat, who refers to her as Terra Guardian. After fighting him off, she thanks him for the ramen bowl and leaves to kill her brother. Kita returns home, where Akane expresses concern that he purposefully pushes people away due to his beliefs that he brings death. On the news, he sees Yamada as one of the victims in a car accident. He vents his frustration that another friend has died, and things get even worse. His next-door neighbor, a little girl named Maya, is killed by a speeding truck after she talks about meeting her double. Kuro appears beside him, who simply remarks that she was not the root. Seiji, the leader of the tribal Ents, executes a man for being defeated by Kuro. Kita remains disturbed over the quick deaths of his two friends, worrying his homeroom teacher, Subuta. He returns home to find Kuro eating from his fridge. When he learns that Akane was the one who brought her in, he kicks them both out, unwilling to be involved with them. However, he later sneaks out to meet with Kuro and asks her for some more details about who she is and the Doppeliner system. She explains that she is Terra Guardian, an agent that enforces the laws of coexistence. All human beings receive an equal amount of Terra, similar to soul or essence. Due to fate, a person's soul is split between three identical bodies, and they share a fluctuating amount of luck or Terra between them. If they ever meet their other selves, the one with the lower Terra is killed off, until only one remains, the Master Root. Elsewhere, a man named Kiraki watches out for Doppelliners, sees Akane and deletes her document. Suddenly, they are attacked by Seiji and the tribal Ents, intent on consuming Kuro's Terra energy. He attacks with a power called Exceed, which he acquired after killing another Terra Guardian. Kuro is badly injured, and when Kita attempts to contact the police, Seiji nearly kills him. Kuro carries Kita to safety and brings him back to life by forming a contract through exchanging hearts. Seiji reappears and attacks them again, but Kuro manages to shock him with a live wire. Kita uses his newfound synchro power to strengthen Kuro's attacks, sending Seiji flying into a Tesla coil. Kita then collapses from exhaustion, with the seal on his hand still glowing red. Kita awakens to find Kuro still in his house. Akane arrives and is surprised to see the two of them alone together. Kuro begins explaining the tedious nature of Terra Guardians and the Doppeliner system, but Akane has trouble believing anything she says. Despite showing off the scars of them exchanging hearts, Akane instructs Kita to see a doctor. Kita grows irritated and tells Kuro to leave, but she says the farther they're apart, the weaker the synchro bond between them grows. They later head out to buy Kuro some new clothes, while a girl named Excel senses the growing number of Master Roots in the area and suspects that someone is artificially mass-producing them. The next day, Kita heads off to school, leaving Kuro behind. However, she is attacked by tribal Ents, and her body too weak as a result of the contract, she is forced to flee. Kita, who sensed pain in his heart, attempts to return home to see if Kuro is okay, but he is stopped by Subuta, who brings him to a classroom to talk to him about the Doppeliner system and how great it would be to create a utopia made up of only Master Roots. Kuro eventually finds them together, and she points a finger at Subuta, calling him a tribal End as well. The two begin fighting, but Kuro remains outmatched. Kita helps her escape with a fire extinguisher, but they are soon cornered at a stairwell. Left with no choice, Kuro begs Kita to perform a synchro with her, in which both their hearts are connected through a singular goal. After they perform the synchro, Kuro's fighting ability shoots through the roof, and she punches Subuta through a window, gravely injuring him. The pair flee the school, unable to return. Excel and her Terra Guardian Steiner investigate Akane due to the strong presence of Terra around her. They follow her to a family restaurant where she meets with Kita and Kuro. Once there, they discuss their next move, and when Akane suggests going to the police, Kuro opposes it. She says they are bad people after she picked up bananas on the ground and was arrested for no good reason. She soon explains her mission of killing her brother, the person behind the recent attacks on them. She asks Kita to fight alongside her, but he refuses to be involved with her any further, blaming her for all the misfortune he has suffered thus far. Elsewhere, Kuraki hands in a report to Yuki, who complains he has yet to find any of her subs. Reishin defends the slow progress, comparing it to finding a grain of sand in the desert. Later, Kita notices a car that has been watching them from outside the restaurant for hours and realizes that they have been followed. They escape through the back streets, where they're attacked by a squad of tribal Ends on motorcycles, who intend to capture Kuro and bring her to Hiyu. Kuro is unable to put up a proper fight, but they are rescued by Excel and Steiner. However, Kita is distrustful of them, especially when he learns that they followed and involved Akane just so they could find him. He throws a punch at the much larger Steiner, which Excel says is tantamount to a declaration of war. As the two Terra Guardians begin to fight, Kuro feels the immense pressure coming from the much larger and more formidable Steiner. She is soon overwhelmed and at the mercy of Steiner's attacks. Excel asks why Kuro formed a contract with such a weak person, prompting Kita to activate Synchro. Kuro blasts Steiner back with her Exceed Mega Axe, but he is unfazed. Kuro tries it again, but her attack is deflected by Excel's shield. The pair synchro, just as Kita's synchro wears off. Steiner's Exceed Stampede allows him to make multiple copies of himself, pummeling Kuro to a pulp. The pair are defeated, but they reconvene back at Kita's house so they can discuss important matters. Excel explains that they are from Noble One, an alliance of Terra Guardians and their masters dedicated to maintaining the delicate balance of coexistence. They were sent to monitor the fluctuation of Terra levels in Japan and sense that Akane has a different Terra energy about her. They show them a photo of Okinawa from 7 years ago, which they note was the beginning of the fluctuating Terra levels. Kita is shocked to see his mother in the photo, taking just a few months before her death. After Excel and Steiner leave, they have lingering suspicions about Kuro, whom they sense is hiding something. Kuro later apologizes to Kita, feeling partly responsible for dragging his mother into this mess. She admits that her brother is also in the photo, bearing a seal on his hand. She hopes that by finding and killing him, she can unravel the truth behind the doppelgangers. The two agree to travel to Okinawa to discover the truth. Mikami, hired by the Kaionoji group, is ordered to capture Kuro. She targets Kita but takes an interest in him and instead holds him hostage and instructs Kuro to meet her. Mikami brings Kita to her house, and Mikami momentarily leaves to bring her master Shingo some medicine. When she returns, Kuro arrives. Mikami accosts Kuro for doing something as irresponsible as forming a contract with a sub who has far fewer Terra reserves than the Roots. To hammer home the consequences, Shingo appears, and although he formed a contract with Mikami 10 years ago, he has the appearance of an old man. Kuro is shocked to learn that her use of Synchro and Exceed literally uses Kita's very life as fuel, but Mikami refuses to excuse her ignorance and attacks. She refuses to acknowledge their contract, remarking that it was one of convenience as opposed to genuine bond she shares with Shingo. This angers Kita, who instantly activates Synchro, and Kuro blasts Mikami away with Mega Axe. Not wanting to be outdone, Shingo activates Synchro with Mikami, despite her protests. Her Exceed, Renko Bushin, heightens her physical abilities tenfold, and she lays the smackdown. Kuro, conscious of using Kita's Terra, holds in her last Mega Axe, releasing it at just the right moment. However, Mikami is unfazed and she smashes Kuro into the ground. Regrettably, Shingo dies in the process, having used the last of his Terra in the final attack. Mikami cradles Shingo in her arms, whose only dream was to die in a cool way. Kita, Kuro, and Akane encounter Riona, a master, and Yokumo, a Terra Guardian. Terra addresses Kuro as princess of the Shishigami clan, and he is one of her tribesmen. After thanking them for their help, they warn them not to go into any Keion convenience stores, as this is how the Keionji group spies on them. Kuro explains to Kita that her clan once lived in the Holy Land, where a magic rock called the Riseki exists, which binds the powers of a dark magic. One day, her brother Reishin killed all their clansmen and mother for the purpose of gathering power to create a new world.
Stop this, please.
Hio, who Kuro recognizes as one of her clansmen, suddenly confronts them. Hio was banished to the lower world after performing inhuman experiments that allowed him to mass-produce tribal ends, lending this power to Reishin so he could further his goals. He begins attacking Kuro, and not even her Mega X seems to faze him. However, he's forced to retreat when Riona and Yokumo arrive as reinforcements, and he's unwilling to engage them all in combat. A frustrated Hio kills one of his subordinates and mulls over getting a man named Shinobu involved. Later, Kita tells Kuro that it's okay to cry, as he did when his mother died. They sit side by side as they prepare to leave for Okinawa. Before they go, Excel gives Kita a ring called the 1000 a powerful ring with catalytic effects. She kisses him on the cheek and reminds him that in times of crisis, only the Master can save his Terra Guardian. Kita, Kuro, and Akane arrive in Okinawa. Kita plans to visit his grandfather to ask more about the picture, but Akane is concerned he may be angry that they didn't tell him ahead of time. After several pit stops, Kita reminds them that they are not here to play. When he arrives at his grandfather's old house and dojo, he shows him the photo in question, but he is unable to adequately explain the doppelganger system. And no matter how hard Kuro tries, the concept remains fantastical. He does not pry as to why they are here and allows them to stay as long as they want. They wine and dine that night, with Akane becoming drunk on alcohol and complaining about how dense Kita is. The next day, after spending a day at the beach, they encounter two other Terra Guardians, Kakuma and Makana, who assume that they are after the Terra Stone. Kita attempts to explain that they are not enemies, but neither of them wants to listen. Kita and Kuro are quickly driven into a corner, but Kita's feelings manage to activate the Thousand Ring, enabling him to synchro with Kuro. Now the tables have turned, and the two Guardians are the ones on the losing end. They try to calm them down, but Makana begins to cry that she couldn't protect the Reiseki. Kakuma explains that 7 years ago, members of the Shishigami clan attacked the Hima clan to try and capture the Reiseki, resulting in them being the only survivors. They remain adamant about fulfilling their duty, and they leave them behind. Later, Hio arrives with Shinobu, who looks exactly like Kita's mother. Kita encounters Shinobu, who learns she was the woman who he saw that fateful day. He asks her about the photo, and she admits she was sent to Okinawa to battle the Terra Guardians there. She refuses to elaborate further, but she apologizes to Kita that his mother was killed due to their meeting. Elsewhere, they encounter Hio, who followed them to the island. After quickly defeating Minaka, he kidnaps Kuro. Kita's Terra energy is sucked away by Shinobu, rendering him immobile, but she is shocked when she sees him suddenly move. She asks Kita if he intends to try and rescue Kuro despite being a sub, and he replies by blasting her with the Thousand Ring. Meanwhile, Hio continues to batter a helpless Kuro. Kita arrives to provide relief, giving Kuro a second wind. However, Hio proves to be too elusive a foe, so Kita tries to fire at him using the Thousand Ring, but Shinobu appears and tackles him to the ground. She activates Synchro, granting Hio the ability to use his Exceed, allowing him to manipulate water and its properties. However, Kira is more shocked to see Shinobu draining Kita's Terra away from him. Hio explains that Shinobu is not a master root, but a minus root. Ordinarily, the way the doppelganger system works is that when one person meets one of the lookalikes, the one with the weaker Terra eventually dies and is absorbed. However, if the sub somehow manages to kill the root, they are transformed into a minus root instead, granting them the power to drain Terra at will. All along, Kita's mother was the true root, as she was killed by Shinobu. As Terra continues to slip away from Kita's grasp, Shinobu tells him that this is the only way a sub is guaranteed happiness. Is it not unfair that people who look exactly like you somehow manage to live better and more fulfilling lives? However, Kita denounces this happiness as fake, and with his last ounce of strength, he fights her off and synchros with Kuro. With what little Terra energy has left, he concentrates it into a singular point on Kuro's Mega X, sending him crashing into a cave wall. Shinobu, a tragic figure who only wanted happiness, soon dies with him. When they emerge from the cave, Kita is shocked to see Kuraki, whom he knows as Sawamura. He suddenly coughs up blood and falls to the ground. Kita awakens to find Sawamura towering over him. He explains that shortly after joining the Kionji group, he assumed the name of Kuraki after one of his subs bearing that name died. He bluntly asks Kita to cooperate with him in his plan to rebel against Raishin and to seize control of the doppelganger system for humans, rather than leave fate up to the Terra Guardians. Years prior, Kita and Sawamura first met as classmates. They were total opposites. Kita was friendly and outgoing, while Sawamura, although intelligent, was distant and aloof. However, Sawamura and Kita are not different. Sawamura avoids people because he thinks they are idiots, while Kita avoids people because he's afraid of getting them hurt. Sawamura shares his dream of one day taking control of fate. Back in the present, he is poised to do just that, and wants Kita, who once shared that dream with him, to join him. Kita suddenly collapses again, and Kuraki tells him not to rush things. Kuro later apologizes to Kuraki how she treated him, but he says it's water under the bridge. They both reaffirm their mutual goals, to stop Raishin. Meanwhile, Akane grows increasingly worried for Kita's safety, and would much rather have him stay behind rather than risk his life fighting. He thanks her for her concern, but he has made up his mind to help Kuraki. Kuro heads out alone to find Raishin first, but he and Kuraki notice a bright light on the horizon. Kuraki realizes that the gate to the sacred grounds have been opened, and the Reiseki is exposed to the enemy. Kita leaves to investigate the slight, but before he leaves, Akane kisses him and tells him to return home safe.